Hi everyone, it's Sharon here, and I wanted to try and break down an answer to a question that I get asked quite regularly. Um, and I kind of realized that although I always answer the question, people find it more difficult than I realized. So I wanted to try and break it down to see if I can be more of service regarding this subject. So the subject is really when we're looking for an answer to our health or our purpose, or we're just trying to figure something out and we want to sit down and try and get some deeper wisdom. Um, People often ask, yeah, but how do I get an answer? And the obviously the how question always arises, but how? And, I usually say something along the lines of sit quietly, take the focus from your mind to your heart space, and allow the answer to bubble up. And that's a pretty accurate description, to be fair. However, I realize that people find it much harder than I realized to get answers. So I tried to break down sort of it into three elements that are kind of required that maybe is not really talked about a lot. Um, the first one may be, or first or second one might be a bit obvious, but it's still worth mentioning. But the third part, I think, might be kind of new to some people, so it's worth just putting out there. So the first requirement for finding answers for yourself um, is really that you know what the answers that your mind gives you already, because if you liked the answers that you already had, you wouldn't be searching for a different answer, right? So it's important to recognize that maybe the soul, maybe the conscious mind is kind of nudging you to say, hey, I've had answers from the mind. I've tried other things, but it doesn't seem like I've found the answer that I'm really searching for. So we want a different kind of answer. And that's the first recognition, is that we're looking for a deeper, wiser, more knowing answer to some of our life's big questions, whether it's health, purpose, or just general life situations or an emotional situation. We want to know how to resolve it. And so when we ask these deeper questions, we have to have a deep curiosity, a willingness, and a level of honesty to look in places that maybe we don't want to look at. Maybe we've hidden away from ourselves. The answer is there, but we don't want to look because we think it's uncomfortable. And so if we want a different answer, if we want a deeper answer, if we want a truer answer, we do actually have to have that open willingness for the answer to be made available. And this might seem really obvious, but actually, like when people come to me for life purpose and I say, oh, what are you hoping for? What are you thinking might be? People say, oh, as long as I don't have to retrain, that's fine. Or as long as I don't have to do this, it'll be fine. As long as it's not this, I'll be all right. And that's the mind putting in restrictions on the answers. And when the mind is involved in the answers, the mind does already know what it doesn't want to do, what it's scared of, what it fears, what it's uncomfortable with. So we're not going to get an answer, a truthful answer, a deep, meaningful, important, useful answer if the mind is putting a restriction on it. So that's the first thing. We have to go in with an open willingness to see, to hear, to get an answer that maybe we haven't got before. And usually it's an answer we haven't gotten before. So that's number one. Number two is, and this is the one that I think most people would be familiar with, is we need to have a quiet mind. Now, the analogy I'm going to offer is if you were to meet your idol or a hero of yours and you have some burning questions and you really want to know the answers to those questions, and you say, could I interview you, please? And they agree. They say, but I've got a bit of a sore throat today. I'm losing my voice a bit. Would you take them for that interview to a loud, chaotic ER? an emergency room in a hospital, you might walk in and there would be somebody stabbed through the heart and bleeding, or somebody giving birth. There'd be a child throwing a tantrum and screaming. There's somebody else who's lying with an injury nearby, right? And they're making a lot of noise. There's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of noise. And so that if that person you admire and you're dying to find out the answers to your questions, and they've got a sore throat and they're speaking very quietly, are you going to be able to hear them? Well, that ER room is the contents of your mind. Maybe in the past, someone you had an emotional experience and it felt like you'd been stabbed in the heart, and that's come up and that's hanging around making noise. Or you're a bit hungry and your childlike tantrum inside is going, I'm hungry, I want food, distract me with something sweet. You know, these are the contents of our minds that distract, cause chaos. Then we can't hear the quiet voice of wisdom. So, where would we take somebody who we wanted to ask questions and we deeply wanted to know the answers to? We take them to a pleasant, quiet environment so that even if they were speaking softly, we could hear everything they said. We could take it in and absorb it without distractions and chaos and screaming and crying and blood and sweat and tears and everything else, right? So that's the reason why we kind of need quiet, because the soul, the spirit, wisdom, call it what you want, speaks in a much more softer and gentler voice than the mind. The mind is quite loud, it's part of the physical realm, it's here to keep you alive, it's part of our survival mechanism, and it's quite loud. But the wisdom that we're seeking, the new answers that we're looking for, usually comes in a much more quieter voice. And so we need that quieter environment. Now, how do we get that quieter environment? The obvious example would be meditation practice, and which is really a quietening of the mind. And it's really just so that you can hear the more gentler voice. The physical mind or the brain and the thoughts are quite loud, and our soul, our spirit, our wisdom, our higher self, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is more gentler because it's from the energetic realm. It's more subtle than the voices in your mind. So that's number 2. And then the third point, and this is really the bit that I don't feel gets talked about very often and I hope will be useful, is that most people identify with their personality. So I am Sharon, and then we would identify with the things like I'm a human, I have a body, I'm a body, I am 50 years old, my body is 50 years old, my gender, my sex, what I do for a living, and my experiences in life, the accumulation of my experiences in life, and this all makes up the personality of Sharon. And when we say personality, that's really the identity of the mind, and it's subconscious and conscious mind, but it's our mind created personality in this lifetime. So it's our accumulation since birth of who we think we are. Now, when we're asking a question of ourselves, if we believe ourselves to just solely be the mind, to be this personality, then when we ask a question, even if we're saying we're asking our heart, are we really asking our heart? Because we really believe we are the mind. All our senses are in our head, our brain is in our head. So we tend to think of ourselves as almost like just a head sometimes. And the head and the mind is kind of where we always go to for answers. So the mind is really what's really going to answer. Or you might just get silence. You won't get an answer because the mind has already given you an answer, and so it doesn't really need to give you another. So we ask a question, we don't get anything back, and we get frustrated. And this is the reason why I believe is because we don't have a level of separation. And so, for example, instead of believing that you are all your collection of experiences, that you are your body, that you are your mind, that you are your personality, we have a slight perspective shift, and we start to say, not that you are it, but that you have it. So, I am not my body, but I have a body. Yeah, I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. And so we create this separation. We have it, but we are not it. I have all of these identities, but I am not my identities. And this languaging that we're using creates a separation. And this is a meditation technique as well, where we strip away all our identities. And then we say to ourselves, well, if I am not all of those things, then what am I? And this, what am I? Usually the answer that emerges very beautifully is we are spirit, we are source energy, we are higher consciousness, we have a higher self, we have awareness, we have consciousness. So this other part of ourselves, a conscious awareness, the observer, the witness, knows it has a mind and it can utilize the mind, know it has a body and can utilize the body, knows it has access to higher wisdom and can utilize and access that. But it is not that. And it's that separation. It's like the awareness is able to observe different parts of ourselves and has access to these different parts. And therefore, when it asks, it's really when we're looking for an answer, our mind's already given us an answer. So we don't really need the mind answer. We're looking for something deeper. And so we're asking another part of ourselves. We're asking our higher self, our soul, our heart. We kind of say heart space as well, or our heart portal. So we're asking another element of ourselves, and it's that separation and the awareness that we are more than just our identity that allows for that. And so that's really the third piece, really, to getting an answer. It's the non-identification with the mind, so that you have some distance, you have some space. For example, people often, when they have issues and they're looking for answers, they may come to someone like me because I'm a life coach and I do healing work as well. But actually, I can go into your subconscious mind. I can speak directly to your subconscious mind. And you might say, well, that's very lovely and that's very helpful. And it is. It cuts out the conscious mind, and we can go direct and talk to the subconscious mind. But I can do that for myself too. And I can do that for myself too. I can speak directly to my subconscious mind and say, what's going on? What are you hiding? And I can go digging around in my subconscious mind because I have a level of separation that allows me to do that. And so, just even recently, I was journaling and I was like, there's something deep in my subconscious and I just can't seem to find it. There's a bit of a blind spot there. But my conscious mind spoke to my subconscious mind, and I was journaling it. And my conscious mind was basically life coaching my subconscious mind. My subconscious mind was coming up with all these arguments as to why it couldn't or wouldn't be a certain way and it wouldn't think a certain way. And my conscious mind was a very good life coach. And it basically convinced my subconscious mind that what it was thinking was not helpful, not relevant. And the subconscious mind agreed it was going to drop it. And so you can have this level of separation and be able to delve into your subconscious mind, go to your heart, go to your source, go to your higher wisdom, with a level of separation. But it's much harder to do. I would say it's almost impossible to do if you believe you are just your mind, because your mind is the only thing that will answer you most of the time, or it will block an answer, or it will dismiss an answer, or it will talk over your answers that you're getting. If you think back to the ER analogy, the universe is often speaking to you. It's the one nudging you to ask the questions normally. Your soul is saying, I'm not so happy, I'm not so fulfilled, I'm not so healthy, I need some help here. So there's like these nudges, but the mind, which is very powerful, tends to make a lot of noise, distract you, disregard answers that you get, and that kind of thing. So that's it, really. I hope that is helpful. Because we do need some quiet. We do need to have a willingness and openness, and a level of honesty about what we find when we get an answer, and that level of separation, I think, is maybe sometimes the bit of the missing piece that people have, um, when asking questions and get frustrated that they're not getting an answer. So I hope that's helpful.